And welcome live to Macau on Eurosport with the cars on the grid for the 52nd annual Macau Grand Prix. Since 1983 it's been run to FIA Formula 3 regulations, but before then a whole host of different single-seaters from Formula Juniors up to Tasman and big capacity cars racing for the Macau Grand Prix trophy. And many illustrious names have won this race in the past. In the Formula 3 era, it kicked off with the young Brazilian Ayrton Senna, later to become better known as Ayrton Senna. John Nielsen, Mauricio Gugelmin, Andy Wallace, Martin Donnelly, Enrico Battaglia, David Brabham, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard, Rickard Rydell, Jörg Müller, Sascha Maassen, Ralf Schumacher, Ralf Furman, Sayela Yari, Peter Dunbreck, Darren Manning, Andre Couto, Takuma Sato, Tristan Gomedy, Nicolas Lapierre, and last year Alexandre Prémat, the role of the most recent winners. And a number of former podium finishers are in the field in this year's race as well. Well, this is the second Formula 3 race of the weekend. They've already had a qualification race, and that was won by the Frenchman Loïc Duval in his Mercedes-engined Dallara, and it is Duval who starts on pole position here. He out-qualified Robert Kubica of Poland in the qualifying sessions to head the grid for race one, and that is how they finished in the qualification race. So David Leslie, with a host of talent and open wheel cars and a fast run down to a narrow first corner, the organisers will be hoping that this Macau Grand Prix passes without too much dramatic incident, as indeed the qualifying race did.
Yes, that's always a big worry, because every time when they have this Grand Prix here, when they get to that first corner, that Lisboa corner, we've seen the incidents during the touring car racing, then that's where it generally happens. It's generally a multi-car pile-up in there. In the qualification race, they all got through without any problems at all. The officials very impressed with what happened, very professional, they said the drivers were, to keep out of trouble. But that was the qualification race. This is the race, and it's for the overall victory. Actually count the two races together, so you've got to win both races, or do exceptionally well in both races, in order to win the Macau Grand Prix overall. So it's a two-race event, not just a one race. The first race we've had, and as Martin said, Duval was first with Kubica second, and that's how they're starting on the grid.
Well, we have had Grand Prix winners who didn't win any of the races, but generally speaking that means you're runner-up to two different drivers. Coming towards us then with the familiar ASM Mercedes grey and black is Loïc Duval, and in the white car with the red highlights around the edges, that is Robert Kubica in the colours of his native Poland. Lucas di Grassi in third place. Di Grassi is the currently third placed Euro Series runner, third in the race last year as well. Paolo Montin celebrates his birthday this weekend. Montin second in 2000, racing in Japan at the moment. From the British Championship, the likes of Charlie Kimball, Danny Watts, Christian Bakkerud, and among others Dan Clark. We have contingents from Europe, from the Euro Series, from French and German championships. We have Japanese championship runners here as well as British runners. Stephen Kane, the only Lola in the field, and he has had no luck other than rotten this weekend. He had problems with oil leaks, water leaks, and crashes in practice. Qualified way down the order, and it's so hard to make progress here. He will start way down the order here as well. So on the grid, the top British driver is Danny Watts. He starts in 10th place, is he not? No, he's Mike Conway, of course, in 4th place. Yes, indeed he is. And Conway from the British Championship, celebrating third in his British Championship challenge this year. He was third in the lineup. So Conway now just 22 years of age, originally from Bromley in Kent. He had a pretty strong season with the Carlin Motorsport team, and it is with Carlin that, I beg your pardon, not with the Carlin team, it was with Manor Motorsport that he comes here, because his original team, he decided initially not to come here to Macau, and the Raikkonen-Robertson racing team with whom he raced in the UK picked up somebody else for the seat, and then he decided in fact he would come. And John Booth's Manor Motorsport, the team that are running him, and Lucas di Grassi. But the onboard camera there with the ASM Formula 3 driver Loïc Duval, and the Frenchman really David, perfectly placed, as we saw in the World Touring Car Championship. There is no better place to start this race than on pole position, because you are hopefully free of any first corner shenanigans.
That's the idea, and unless you're the one who makes the mistakes, in which case everyone is queued up behind you. But the idea is on this very tight twisty circuit on the back half of the circuit, you need to be right at the front of the grid. You need to be somewhere whereby you can keep out of trouble, and the trouble tends to be anywhere from 10th position backwards. And we're looking at 27 starters in this race, and we're going to look at a 15-lap race, so that's a lot of opportunity for accidents to happen around the circuit. Drivers do get tired. It's such a narrow circuit, and these walls and Amico barrier is just so unforgiving, and if you touch either the walls or the barriers at all with these cars, you can see the front suspension there from the onboard camera with Kubica, that it is very small, it's very fragile as such. Yes, it does a good job, yes, it can do 150 miles an hour and it can run over the bumps and everything else, but if you hit a wall with it, it does bend very, very quickly indeed, and that's not how it's stressed in order to hit walls. So these guys need to keep it away from the barriers and away from the walls in order to keep going and doing a really good job. A really good job has to be starting at the front of the grid. Yes, they're coming onto the grid now through that last corner, which is the R bend, and they'll all line up, and it'll be a full grid all the way to the back. Onto the starts there, ready for the start.
Cars coming to the grid for the 53rd Macau Grand Prix. We should hopefully have all 30 entries here. The two drivers who retired from race one, Lu Ming Chong of Macau and Bruno Senna of Brazil, nephew of the late great Ayrton Senna, the winner of the first F3 race here in 1983. They both retired. They have been given grid positions, and so too has the Japanese Taku Bamba, who did not start the qualification race, but he should be allowed to start from 30th place on the grid. There's Senna's car coming around the corner, so he is certainly there, but I don't think Bamba is on the back, so no Taku Bamba, so Bruno Senna is the last of starters. On pole is Loïc Duval, alongside him Robert Kubica of Poland. And as the red lights go off, there is the field, and they spread out 5 wide. Kubica immediately on the defensive against Lucas di Grassi, as di Grassi and Duval from the right-hand side of the grid, as they saw it, made good starts. See the blue car of Paolo Monti, the yellow nose of the Red Bull car coming up the inside as well, and that is Sebastian Vettel. Vettel having a good start, but lots of jinking and dicing as they slipstream each other up to this first major braking at Lisbon corner. And on the outside is the front row starter, Robert Kubica. He gets through. Can they keep it clean through here? The organisers resisting the temptation to make the first corner a yellow flag affair and actually allow some racing, and they've done well. Stephen Jelly's picked up a place or two there, down in the late teens and early 20s. His familiar light blue and black car. Paolo Monti celebrating his birthday this weekend, hoping to go one better than the runner-up spot in 2000. That's Danny Watts in a yellow and black car with the yellow helmet. But our race leader, Loïc Duval, already trying to make a break from the rest of the field. Kubica going with him, or trying to, on board with Kubica, up and downhill around the back streets of Macau. And you can see, even though they've been trying to warm the tyres, how much these cars slide around here. Now closing down the Moorish Hill towards Donna Maria, the long left-handed corner, and then up towards the Melco hairpin. This is Donna Maria, descending left, and then heading up to the Melco hairpin, the slowest corner and the one that demands perhaps the most precision to actually make it around. And we've already got a queue of cars, our 3 ASM cars filling the top 4 positions, with di Grassi going strongly in 3rd place. But it's Loïc Duval, the race leader, with the Mercedes engine, which seems to be the real powerhouse, David, in current Formula 3 terms.
Yes, definitely. They've been very quick, especially the European F3. European F3 champion is not here this weekend. He was going to come originally, then decided not to come. But whichever way you look at it, the Mercedes engine and the Lara chassis has been very strong throughout Europe. And when you look at what is happening here with Duval out front. He really is stretching himself away at the very beginning. And here we've got an onboard with di Grassi, as well as having the onboard with Kubica. When you get that onboard picture there, you can see also the graphics that come with it to tell you how many revs you've got, what G's you're pulling. But coming down the straight, that di Grassi trying to take second away from Kubica, and there's the brake, yes, down the inside. Can he get around the corner? He can manage that as well. Good overtaking manoeuvre there by di Grassi.
Great stuff by di Grassi. Used the slipstream, came around the long way, around the outside of Kubica, but Kubica flat and deep on the inside. Defensive line is not the quickest way through that corner. If you can stay around the outside, it's like the S's at Snetterton. An outside pass around the corner there gives you a better drive off the corner. It's a much better way of getting around it. Palemontin in 5th position behind Mike Conway. So Conway keeping his head above water at the moment, another of the grey and black Mercedes engine cars. And in between all of them, with a Neil Brown tuned Mugen Honda, Robert Kubica, the only non-Mercedes engine in the top 4. So Palemontin, another Neil Brown Mugen Honda, the Ombra Racing team running his blue car. But he's already been passed by the Red Bull coloured machine of Sebastian Vettel. And Vettel, another ASM car, despite the Red Bull colours as opposed to that Mercedes livery of grey and black. He has really got the bit between his teeth, and look at him coming now, looking for 3rd place. He's behind Robert Kubica and closing in fast. And this is all meat and drink really for Loïc Duval. Look, he's just opening up an enormous advantage, but a drive-through penalty for a jump start. Well, I didn't think his advantage to the naked eye looked that great, but there goes his chance of winning this Grand Prix. And there's a big pile-up at the hairpin. Now, this is a permanent yellow flag position on the racetrack. You are not allowed to overtake, and that's why, because the cars can't get round unless they're on the perfect racing line. There is not enough lock in these cars. So drama there at the hairpin at Melco, and drama too at the front of the field. The race leader hit with a stop-go penalty, and he must come in immediately for it to stand any chance of recovery. And if he comes in now and then a safety car comes out, he may stand some chance. If he stays out behind the safety car, it's all done for him.
That's a real bad news for him, because he's been on top most of the weekend. He's quickest in qualifying, he's been quick in free practice, and really, you know, this was his race to take away. He won the qualification race to start with, and he was very much on top form. And I must say, when we've seen the start, it didn't look as though there was a jump start there from our position when we're looking at it on the camera. But that's not to say that what actually happens, because they have officials standing by the side of the circuit, watching the cars and watching the lights to make a decision what happens. And some of these circuits actually have electronic markings in the circuit, in the ground itself, so you can tell whether the car has gone over those markings and set off before the lights have actually gone out from the 5 red lights and switched off. And the minute they're switched off, that's when they can go, and maybe they've picked that up.
Well, I'm not sure you'd spend all the money doing that in public streets. I mean, you know how often they dig the roads up in the UK, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's that much different here in Macau. You're certainly not going to spend an awful lot of money putting the transponders down in public roads, because they'll just get crushed by the weight of traffic and probably then dug up as soon as the gas board want to come and do some repairs. So on board with our, well, soon-to-be new race leader, Lucas di Grassi, one of the Renault development drivers, and Robert Kubica there with a handful, somebody in the barriers, and I think that might have been Frank Pereira's Prema Power Team car. We'll look for confirmation of that. He was in 12th place on the previous lap. Pole position sitter Loïc Duval, but we have already seen that more important graphic, that he has been hit with a jump start penalty.
And he hasn't taken that yet. He's still running round, and I know they have radios in these cars so that engineers can talk to the drivers. I'm sure the engineer will have told him he has to come in, but not yet.
Race is just a couple of laps old here at Macau, the 53rd Macau Grand Prix. And Robert Kubica under pressure for his third place, which might soon become second, because our race leader has been hit with a jump start penalty. 12 laps of this 53rd Macau Grand Prix left to go. We're on board with Lucas di Grassi, playing fast and loose there with the barriers. He was very close. You have to shave the barriers here to get maximum speed out of these cars. He's got Kubica right behind him. If he goes off anywhere here, he'll take Kubica off the racetrack as well, because there will be bits flying everywhere, and the pole in third place at the moment will be very hard pressed to avoid them.
And these three now, which are basically first, second and third in real terms, with Duval having to come in for his stop-go penalty, and quite close up the front with di Grassi, Kubica and Vettel. And Vettel seems to be the man on the move. He's come from slightly further back at the start of this race, now in a very strong third place, trying very hard to get past this man, Robert Kubica, with the red and white Honda engined car there.
Yeah, Vettel's had a great start from 8th on the grid to be in 4th place on the road, but effectively coming up to 3rd. There's the hairpin, that's Bruno Senna's car. Senna's car is still stationary at the hairpin, and the other one then, I make that as the Japanese driver Hirate. So I'm thinking that is who has gone. Kohei Hirate, racing for Team Rosberg in his Spice Opel engined Dallara. So second, third and fourth to become soon first, second and third. How long can he stay out, David? He's got one more lap before he'll be black flagged. The regulation is normally that you have to come in within 3 laps of being assessed for a penalty like that. Paolo Montin on his own in the blue car. Then the two teammates in the orange and white cars, the Signal Media Team Tom's Toyota engine Dalaras. João Paulo de Oliveira, the lead one of those two cars that look like one coming towards us. He's the Brazilian who won the Japanese Formula 3 title this year, and his teammate here, Kazuki Nakajima. But again, Kubica hard on the brakes down into Lisboa. Lisboa, of course, the Portuguese name for Lisbon, and this a former Portuguese colony. Rented from China on a 99-year lease, as Hong Kong was by the British. And now in second place with Lucas di Grassi, climbing the hill, braking over the top of the rise, plunging back down again, only to start climbing once more. And you just see how close those barriers are. And if you look at the scenery, you see how steeply the road rises and falls as well. So although the roadside walls follow the undulations beside them, you can see everything changing. And somebody has gone off here at the first major corner. That's Lisboa. We'll try and identify that. That is one of the tail enders. We'll get back to him later as our second, third and fourth place battle continues. The Red Bull car at the back, Sebastian Vettel of Germany. Vettel really pushing very hard indeed to stay in touch with these two. You have to say Kubica's giving a very good account of himself. He's not been dropped by di Grassi at all. So if we can pick up this incident then at the first corner, your classic out-braking yourself manoeuvre straight into the barriers. And again, further down the order that was, well out of the teens' places. And that was Filip Salaquada, the Czech, in his Dallara with its Opel Spice engine.
And that's Duval still going around. He hasn't come into the pits this time, and I think he must now be getting very much to the end of the number of laps he has to come in. And because you cannot, you know, the officials say you have to come in once you've been told about your penalty. You've only got 3 laps to which to take it. Now we reckon he's already taken his 3 laps, and he hasn't come in yet. He's going to do one more lap. He may decide that he's not going to take any attention whatsoever of the officials and just keep on going, in which case he'll get a lot of TV coverage, but he'll get no result whatsoever. And what he will get will be a very stern talking by the clerk of course at the end of the race, and probably an endorsement, if not losing his race licence for disobeying the officials of the meeting. So I'm sure his engineers have told him, you must come in, you must come in, and we'll hopefully wait and see what happens on this next lap.
So as time runs out for leader Loïc Duval, we'll take a quick commercial break and rejoin the action live in Macau. Macau Formula 3 Grand Prix here on Eurosport, where Lucas di Grassi now leads the race as the man who started from pole and led the opening 5 laps has headed in to take his stop and go penalty, and he's come back out onto the track. Lost him. Where's he got to? Loïc Duval in 4th place, it would seem, as he crossed the line, but that will have been when he was going into the pits, so he will drop right down the order and surely well out of the 20, and a big lock up there from behind as we were watching from di Grassi. It wasn't Kubica, that was Sebastian Vettel locking up. That's the lead trio. 4th, the blue car Paolo Montin, chased by Japanese F3 champion of this year, João de Oliveira from Brazil. But at the moment, it's di Grassi, the Brazilian, the ex-Brazilian Formula 3 champion, versus Robert Kubica. And Kubica, David Leslie, with very little Formula 3 experience in his career at all, because he spent almost all of his single-seater career coming up through the Renault ranks, hasn't he? Formula Renault Euro Series, Formula Renault 2000. He then went to the Euro Formula 3 Series before going back to the Renault fold with the World Series by Renault, where he won the championship this series.
Yes, very much so. He's always been a Renault person, and he's done the Renault Championships. We remember him a couple of years ago here in Eurosport when we were covering one of the Renault Championships. He was doing very well in that, and he's gone back to that Renault route, the World Series by Renault. And look at the lead. Is it going to change? Can they get round this corner together? Only just, and wide onto that loose dust there that they've been put down for the accidents from the previous race, and you really need to keep off that light coloured part of the road where the dust is, where the concrete dust has been put down, because that is very slippy indeed. He very nearly made it, did Kubica, past di Grassi. He was right beside him, couldn't quite get past him in order to get round the corner first, but so close to not having an accident.
Well, that outside move, of course, was how di Grassi got past Kubica, who was second on the grid, to take what was then second place on the first lap away from the start. And so Kubica very nearly paying him back with the same move to take the lead. He got alongside, he got him covered, but there just wasn't enough room there. And what that's done is given di Grassi a moment of breathing space and suddenly hooked Vettel back up to the back of Kubica's car, much closer than he was before. Di Grassi now about, 0.6 away from Kubica, and Kubica about 0.5 ahead of Vettel. Paolo Montin, João de Oliveira and his teammate Kazuki Nakajima are 4th, 5th and 6th, but really out of this race. Behind them though, an all-British F3 battle. Dan Clark in 7th, Charlie Kimball 8th, and Danny Watts in 9th place, ahead of Loïc Duval, who has come back out in 10th, ahead of another British F3 Series runner, the Dane Christian Bakkerud. So it's di Grassi, Kubica and Vettel, and very little to choose between them, although you do sense, and certainly the eye would lead you to believe, that Kubica again is more closing up on di Grassi than Vettel is on him. I think we're looking at the race coming down to these two, David.
Yes, these two very much fighting over it, and it was only that manoeuvre at the end of these straights in the last lap that split them up a little bit at all. They were really nose to tail. I think it will be very shortly back to nose to tail again, and Kubica will be trying to harass di Grassi into making a mistake, because these cars have got a lot of downforce. They're very much like a Formula 1 car, in that you've got your wings at the front and wings at the rear, and a lot of downforce with the various aerodynamic aids on the side of the car, underneath the car, and that's why these cars are so quick around this little circuit. They've got a lot of downforce, they've got good tyres, got very good grip on them, slick racing tyres, and they arrive at the corners, brake very late indeed. That's another overtaking manoeuvre.
That's Duval. Duval passing Charlie Kimball, the number 6 car that the same car that he raced in the British F3 Series, and behind them you saw Danny Watts. So great move by Duval on Kimball. This guy is absolutely flying. Charlie Kimball with the Mugen Honda Neil Brown engine in his Carlin Racing. Delara, and somebody's gone, oh, that's Fisherman's. It's not, that's the corner after Fisherman's. Well, you can see that what's left of the rear suspension is keeping the wheel attached as he comes past the pits, but he is going no further. There is Danny Watts, former British F3 champion, a man now who really only very rarely gets his hands on the steering wheel of a race car. A real shame. And that is that Stephen Jelly's car, I'm wondering? Let's take a look. Yes, it is Stephen Jelly. And he comes understeering away, bang, rear wheel, rear wing get ripped off. The marshal was just ready with the flags, wasn't he? He knew it was coming, as Jelly did himself. You can imagine him with his forearms crossed, all the lock on, and it just was not coming back. I wonder, couldn't really see from that shot whether he'd knocked part of his nose wing off on an earlier incident.
I'm not sure what he'd done, but it certainly came round. You could see the understeer on the car. We could see it before he actually got into hitting the tyre barrier just at the end there before the wall. And massive understeer just straight into the wall. There was nothing much you could do about it. We'd have to have gone round that corner a good 10 mile an hour slower to be able to get round. But anyway, there's the car sitting at the side of the circuit. I think it's fairly safe at that point. They've got the yellow flags out at the moment. Whether they'll leave the car there because it's in a reasonably safe place, that's not where you would normally end up with your race car. Once you come round the corner, you come back out in order to take the next corner, the reservoir bend. But certainly it was through the R bend when he hit the wall on the exit. But here we are, back to that fight for the lead.
And a back marker right in front of the leaders, and this could really play into the hands of Kubica. He got in front, and di Grassi was trying to fight his way back in the number 8 car. Kubica did the move nice and early, though. He saw the danger stroke potential of having that back marker there, and the slower car is out of the way now. That's one of the Macau's drivers. I think that was Joe Mercedes. No, his car's all black, so it wasn't, but whatever, Kubica gets in front, and David using the aerodynamic toe. I did actually notice that when they came out of Fisherman's down to our bend, and Kubica, di Grassi rather, saw the flags, he suddenly made a big adjustment in his line, backed off early and took a really tight exit from there, and I think that allowed Kubica the slingshot up behind him. Kubica perhaps taking a little bit more of a chance to try and get that initiative, and in the end, although theoretically he should have backed off as well with waved yellow flags, there was no idea what was going to be round the corner, he might have made it.
And there we are, we see the overtaking manoeuvre. That's what's happened. He's gone a little bit quicker at the corner. He's got beside Kubica, and he's basically run him into the back of that back marker, so there's nowhere for him to go. He had to back off rather than have an accident, and nobody wants to have an accident, certainly not at the speeds that these cars are doing, coming down that straight into that corner there. So that was the overtaking move.
Danny Watts in the barriers, and somebody else behind him, and he had Christian Backerud behind and Charlie Kimball in front, and I don't know which of those it is.
I would say the one behind is the one car. There's two cars there.
There's 2 cars.
Those cars have had their accident, and because of that,
Charlie Kimball bailing out there, and that's Dan Clark. Dan Clark was behind, was in front of, in fact, of them.
And it looks like those two have had the accident, and then Danny Watts has lost the car, trying to miss them. He's come round the corner,
well,
had to take evasive action, and
Kimball then clearly shouting there at Dan Clark, and it wouldn't be the first vague move that Dan Clark has caused a big accident with in the British Formula 3 Championship this season. Not too many people try rash inside moves at Parabolica. Dan Clark did a lot of damage with one of those. Now Robert Kubica starting to ease away as di Grassi now has Vettel on his tail. Safety car. Safety car comes out, but it's all too late for Danny Watts, Charlie Kimball and Dan Clark. Somehow, David, Loïc Duval doesn't seem to have been caught up in that, and he will be now just outside of our top 6 and right on the back of them after the safety car picks up our leader, Robert Kubica.
Yes, the safety car is going to play very much into the hands of Duval. He was just in front of those 3 British guys who've gone off, and now he'll be right behind those first 5 and picking up a lot of time here.
Under safety car conditions, the field closing up behind our new leader, Robert Kubica. Lucas di Grassi's view there in 2nd place. Sebastian Vettel in 3rd for Germany in the Red Bull coloured car and sponsored car. 4th, João Paulo de Oliveira, the Brazilian who won the Japanese Formula 3 Championship last year. There is the safety car waiting to pick up the leaders. And I tell you what, there better not be any place shuffling among them before they get there either, because the officials will be down on that like a ton of bricks. Into the pits. Well, that is a back marker. That's one of the, it's not so much a back marker, but it is one of the Carlin Motorsport cars. Now, the only one in the lead group was Christian Backerud in 8th place. And I don't know whether that was him or not, I'm afraid. Can't identify the helmet from that distance. We know that we've lost 1, car number 6 of Charlie Kimball. So quite where in that case, because the other Carlin car, of course, is Robert Kubica. So that then certainly is Christian Backerud. He was actually a little higher up the order than he should have been, so he'd sort of come past a few guys, maybe in his hurry to get to the pits. So, safety car now has pretty much the field behind him. Kubica, di Grassi, there is Danny Watt's wrecked car. This is not going to be a quick clear up, because the two at the top of the picture there are Charlie Kimball and Dan Clark, and they will take some time to sort out as well. So 17 cars still running, and the last of which is Mike Conway on the back of the pack. Rodolfo Avila, the 18 car, and Avila, another Macanese driver.
And we can see here the safety car going very, very slow indeed, much slower than I would normally expect. Now I can understand him going slow as he is getting towards the accident, but at the moment he's just running down the straight, and all these cars have now caught up, including the biomarkers of a time to catch up onto the train behind the safety car. So the safety car, if he's going that slow, these guys will find it very difficult to try and keep the heat in their tyres and also the heat in their brakes before the restart, because one thing they need to do is not only have warm tyres but some warm brakes when they arrive down at the corner. This is a replay of the overtaking manoeuvre, and this is when Kubica came up to try and get...
Well, we're on board with di Grassi, so this is di Grassi trying, maybe this, no, it's not the first lap either, di Grassi trying to pass Kubica back. This is up towards the sharp right at Lisboa. Dear.
Not sure what that was, really.
All sorts of replay action going on there.
I think it was a replay, but the wrong replay. I think it was a replay earlier on rather than the one that we wanted to see, which was when Kubica got past di Grassi just a lap ago.
Well, they had just gone through shot is Loïc Duval, and Christian Backerud has disappeared from that little grid, or he's a couple of cars further back. So there's Kubica, di Grassi, Vettel, then the two orange and white cars, De Oliveira and Nakajima. Then Paolo Monti in the blue car, and this is Stephen Jelly. Look at the understeer, enormous understeer there. And actually, do you know what? There doesn't seem to be an awful lot of front wing on that car, and I wonder whether he had just scraped the front wing off somewhere and not allowed enough for that when he got down to the R bend where he went off. Well, bits of debris now on the track in a number of places.
I'm pretty sure the marshals around the circuit, the corner workers, will, when it's clear and there's no one coming around, will be able to lift whatever debris is off the circuit. We notice the car that tore the rear end off also managed to drop part of his rear wing, I think, onto the circuit, and that'll be picked up as well. So we'll wait and see what happens. But already there's the various trucks out there. They've got 3 trucks that we can see to try and shift those 3 cars. All the British F3 runners there, all going off at the same time. We reckon that 2 of them had an accident, and that's what caused the 3rd one. Here we are coming up to the incident behind the safety car, so nice and slowly past the incident itself. There's 2 trucks, 2 cars being lifted, and as we come along a little further we can see that's where the other car went in, and that was Danny Watt's car, the yellow car there. So slowing right down there, so the guys at the back of that field will be almost stopped in order before they get through there. Now the Alfa Romeo safety car picks up a little bit of speed and carries on. I reckon that one more lap probably behind the safety car, and then they'll let them go if they can get to the start line, and then somebody says the trucks are on the way off the circuit. They may suddenly start it 1 lap earlier, but I reckon another lap and a quarter behind the safety car, and then the Alfa Romeo will pull off and this race will restart. Now that's done a fantastic job for Duval, because having had that jump start, we didn't see it there, we just see it after the start was started, and Duval's got a good start. We can see he's got a good start there. Kubica squeezing di Grassi into the wall to try and get the 2nd place there, and I have to say it's a good start there. It is a good start. He's got a good run there as Duval, but he's been into the pits, he's had his stop go penalty, come back out, he came back out in 10th place, he's made those places back up to 7th, and that's where he is now. But the 7th now is right behind and not far behind the leaders, where 7th before was a good 20 seconds down on where the leaders were. Now he's a lot better, and now you can see him at the back of that group behind the blue car, and that blue car being Mountain's car. So he'll be looking to try and pick up a few more places. Remember, he did win the first race, the classification race, and the overall win for the Macau Grand Prix is when they add the results of the 2 races together. So Robert Kubica, who finished second in the first classification race, very much will want to win this one, in the hope that Duval doesn't get himself up into second place. And if that happens, then Kubica will walk away with the overall lead.
Well, Kubica and di Grassi, second and third last year, and currently first and second in this race. There is Duval then, just in the frame. Behind him, next car up, Frank Pereira. So Pereira was in 9th place, but I'm sure Christian Baccarat, there was something odd going on with him. I'm not quite sure. Certainly a red and white and black looking Carlin coloured car dived into the pits. Now it's saying that Fabio Carboni has had a pit stop, and the number 16 car is one of the signature cars, Signature's SLC machine. Well, that's an all-red car. Who else would have been into the pits? The number 26 car, Daisuke Ikeda. I have to say, I can't tell you what colour that car is, so I don't think, maybe he was a back marker that just happened to look like a Carlin liveried car. Trevor Carlin's team, one of the benchmarks, of course, in British Formula 3 and now in the Euro Series and the Formula Renault World Series. Trevor, originally one of the top race engineers at Paul Stewart Racing during their dominant period in the British Formula 3 Championship. That's where he learned his trade and learned how top flight teams are run in these feeder categories, and he's still very much one of the benchmarks. Of course, in the European business, ASM is the team that everybody is clamouring to be with. That's where Loïc Duval and Sebastian Vettel are harboured this weekend. Vettel at the moment in 3rd place in that Red Bull car, and Duval, the pole sitter, the early race leader, in 7th place. But with the great speed and overtaking opportunities that he seems to be able to produce here, I don't see Duval finishing the race, David, in 7th position.
No, definitely not. He's certainly going to make some places up, and these guys now all weaving about frantically trying to get some heat back into their tyres in order to they're pretty sure they're going to have a restart next time round. They know when they were driving around, they could see all 3 trucks lifting the cars out of the way, and they were hoping maybe to get going on the last lap because the safety car was going very slowly. They'd drop back should the safety car suddenly switch its lights off at the last minute and dive into the pits ready to go. That didn't happen. When that didn't happen, they accelerated back up behind the Alpha car, and you can see them now running here, weaving feverishly to try and keep the heat in the tyres. I think, in actual fact, it doesn't do a great deal to try and keep heat in the tyres. If you accelerate hard and brake hard, that will do a lot more to keep heat in the tyres, but somebody obviously weaved, and everyone else thinks that's the right thing to do, when in actual fact an engineer will tell you accelerating brake is a much better idea.
Safety car still out with the lights on, leading the field around here in the 52nd Macau Grand Prix. Formula 3 cars in what is really the crown jewel of the Formula 3 season. Everybody would like to win the Monaco F3 Grand Prix support race if they get the opportunity, and of course Zandvoort's Marlborough Masters is very much an international feature now, but for so many drivers, the Macau Grand Prix, particularly in its Formula 3 years, kicking off in 1983, has been the race that everybody wants to win. It doesn't hurt that the first winner in an F3 car was Ayrton Senna. It doesn't hurt that Michael Schumacher and David Coulthard are among the winners. It really doesn't do it any disservice at all. And in fact, the number of non-winners that have got illustrious careers behind them as well include the likes of Jenson Button and other Formula 1 drivers like Jarno Trulli have come here and not actually managed to win it either. Heikki Kovalainen, another runner-up in 2002. Takuma Sato's been a winner. Jacques Villeneuve made it onto the podium one year in 1992, then a young, fresh-faced boy. And of course, he went on to do something or other with the Williams team, I'm sure, before he hit his current slump. So Robert Kubica then hoping to join the list of those luminaries that have won and gone on to Formula 1 greatness. Yellow flags out at the hairpin as they are all race long. Kubica bouncing off the curb on the inside. There's a big drop there, but you've got to make sure you're bouncing off the curb and not off the barriers.
And these cars now picking a little bit of speed up because they're fairly sure that the trucks have gone and that the Alfa Romeo will be switching off its light in order to pull in, and certainly now cornering a little bit quicker to try and keep up with the people in front in order to get a good start. The last thing you want to do is leave yourself with 5 or 6 car lengths between you and the car in front when the race restarts, because then you've really got a lot of hard work. There's the lights out now on the top of Alfa Romeo. All these drivers know that. The lead driver, Kubica, will hold them all back a little bit and let the Alfa Romeo go so that he can accelerate quickly in order to try and get away before the rest of them, in order to try and squeeze as much gap between himself. There he goes. Is that him going? Yes, that looks like. No, they're still sitting at the moment. There's the Alfa pulling off, and very quickly they'll go. They're flat out now as to go around the corner. There's the green flag being waved at the corner, round to come to go across the line, the start and finish line, and Kubica's got himself a small gap. Somebody further back's pulling off to the side. That didn't look very good for somebody around about 8th or 9th place.
I think somebody hit the barriers there, but there was a back marker behind our 5th place, our 7th place driver, as di Grassi again uses the toe to outdrag Kubica, this time into the Mandarin Hotel corner. They're coming up towards Lisboa. Is there a chance to drag back 2 racing laps left in the 52nd Macau Grand Prix? And João Paulo de Oliveira goes for greatness around the outside of Vettel and can't do it, and nearly takes off his teammate. And Loïc Duval has got past Paulo Montin into 6th place at the restart. So 2 laps left. It is di Grassi from Kubica, Vettel in 3rd, Nakajima up to 4th, de Oliveira in 5th, and Duval, the pole sitter, the early leader, in 6th place after that penalty. Well, he was pinged for a jump start, and that has hurt him so much. But he had a back marker between him and the field behind, led by Christian Backerud, which protected him and allowed him then to go and try and set his assault on getting up into the lead group. And Kubica out-dragged away from the start. He didn't get away from di Grassi fast enough. The onboard cameras from di Grassi showed he was very, very ready for Kubica, and he had the right gear selected, the engine right on the peak rev band, and when Kubica dropped the hammer, di Grassi went right with him. So di Grassi pulling off the overtaking manoeuvre. 3rd is Vettel, and Nakajima up to 4th place after de Oliveira muffed the attempt to get around the outside of Vettel at Lisbon. Down to the hairpin they come, and now for Kubica, not about the hairpin here, but about the run down through Fisherman's. That car on the side, I thought that had been there for a while, but now it's one of the British runners. 21 car is Stephen Kane in the Lola. What a wretched weekend he has had. So, out of Arb End, here they come, up towards the start-finish. In fact, that's Fisherman's. This is the Arb End coming up now. Braking here, tyres squealing as they desperately try and scrabble for traction across the start-finish line. And Kubica is not close enough. That's a good couple of corners from di Grassi. He's done enough to keep Robert Kubica behind as they go on to the last lap of this Macau Grand Prix. Looking back from di Grassi, Kubica not close enough to challenge. Flat out through the bend in front of the Mandarin Hotel. Kubica closing, inching slowly nearer, but he won't be near enough. And there comes João Paulo de Oliveira trying to take back 4th place from his teammate Nakajima, and I think he will have done that on the run up to Lisbon. But with half a lap to go, Kubica is all over the back of di Grassi. This could go either way. Passing on the uphill down Dale section is very tough, but if he can get into position, we saw how good di Grassi was from the Melco hairpin to the line. Kubica has got to be utterly exceptional there, because he's got a couple of yards in which to try and make a pass.
It can be very difficult for Kubica on this part of the circuit because it's so narrow, and these cars are going through these corners so quickly with all the downforce they've got. But remember, this is going to be an average of the 2 races, the race from yesterday, the classification race, and this one. And in the first race, Kubica beat di Grassi by 6 seconds. So if Kubica can stay inside 6 seconds behind di Grassi, he could come out the overall winner of this race without actually winning either part of the race.
I said before, it's been done several times that if you get two runner-up spots to different drivers, you're in better position than either of them. And di Grassi was, as you said, behind Kubica in the last race by a considerable margin. And Loïc Duval, our onboard shot with him, showed him closing in on the tail of Nakajima. But out of the hairpin for the final time, di Grassi squirting it down the hill with every ounce of throttle he can muster. That gas pedal nailed to the floor, but Kubica's all over the back of him into Fisherman's, a very quick corner. It'll be a break and down into the R-bend, and he's not close enough. Di Grassi's got phenomenal grunt down the hill. The Mercedes engine in Lucas di Grassi's car just keeping him clear of the Neil Brown Mugen Honda in that of Robert Kubica, but Kubica doesn't need to risk it. Di Grassi takes the checker. Third place, Sebastian Vettel is thrilled to pieces. De Oliveira fourth. Nakajima just holds off Duval at the line. Then Baccarut got ahead of Paolo Montin as well. Montin in his birthday weekend can not match his second place in the year 2000. So Lucas di Grassi, the race winner, average speed of 135 kilometers an hour despite that safety car. But there is the man who has done best over the two races. It is the Pole, Robert Kubica, the World Series by Renault champion for 2005. And has he done enough on aggregate to take the Macau Grand Prix win? It would certainly appear to be the case. Big bunched field. For many, this will be their last mile or two ever in a Formula 3 car. An awful lot of drivers come back here more than a couple of times, and many of these will be moving on. They're really the old guard, if you like, of Formula 3 racing. Not too many of the front runners are the young pups who are in their first season.
Yeah, these guys, when you get to this race at the end of the season, you've normally completed your whole European season, national season, whatever it is you've been racing in Formula 3, and this is your swan song if you're going to move up and carry on to try and make it into Formula 1. You do this race and then next year you move on to one of the many formulas that's now available for these guys in order to try and progress up into Formula 1. So quite a few of them we will not see back again. Every now and again you'll see somebody who'll come back and do it once or twice, and we know that both Kubica and di Grassi were here last year. They finished second and third last year, and it looks like they're finishing first and second this year.
Well, Kubica, of course, has done his 2 years of Formula 3 in the Euro Series and then moved onwards and upwards, but came back anyway to Macau. And there's a real challenge about Macau that the drivers almost universally respond to, and it's a bit of a shame that neither our British Formula 3 nor our Euro Series Formula 3 champion have come to this race. It doesn't devalue the race in any way. It's just a shame not to see Lewis Hamilton and Alvaro Perez, but both of them deciding to concentrate on their GP2 careers for next year. And many of these drivers, as David says, will move on and up to GP2, maybe some to World Series, and maybe some will get back to A1 duties again. A number of the drivers racing in the A1 GP Series this weekend, so not able to run in the Macau Formula 3 Grand Prix. But again, this long-serving institution, now over half a century old, the Macau Grand Prix, and like Monaco, if you try to invent it in the present day and age, probably everybody would be going, are you insane, it's far too dangerous. But since it's got all of that history and that mystique, and since so many greats have come here and won, particularly the single-seater race, but for touring car drivers, the name of illustrious touring car winners is just as starry an all-star lineup. So Robert Kubica, the first man into Parc Fermé then. And it seems likely now that he will be the man on the top step of the podium at the end of the weekend. He didn't beat Lucas di Grassi to the line, but he did enough, we think, to take the overall Grand Prix win. So after the excitement and thrills of the World Touring Car Championship deciding pair of races, the Formula 3's hardly failed in their job to try and top what the touring car boys had done in their 2 races as well. 2 races here, one on Saturday, one on Sunday for the Macau Formula 3 Grand Prix drivers, and both of them absolute thrillers start to finish. Lots of overtaking, lots of incident and accident, and a degree of barroom recrimination later, particularly among old British sparring partners Conway, Clark, Watts and Kimball. But all said and done, it was still a great race result. So confirmation then of the result here: Di Grassi, Kubica, Vettel, the podium standers in this race. Oliveira just hanging on ahead of Nakajima. It seems Nakajima getting the nod at the line from Duval by a whisker under a nanometer. And there are the remaining finishers. As you can see, a number of lap drivers there, including with the familiar green colours of the flag of Macau. And that is it from Macau. The race is over, the weekend is over, the Grand Prix is done for another season. So that's it too from David, Leslie and myself for the 52nd Macau Grand Prix. We hope you've enjoyed Eurosport's live coverage of the Blue Ribbon Formula 3 event of the season. There is your winner, Lucas di Grassi. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.